Governor Elena Vasquez stood at the window of her office and watched the sunset over the wheat fields of New Harvest. The golden light spread across thousands of acres of crops that fed her colony of 12,000 souls. For 40 years, humans had lived on this distant world called Kepler 442b. They had built homes. They had raised children. They had created something beautiful at the very edge of explored space. And now it was all about to end. The communication device on her desk beeped again. She did not need to look at it. She already knew what it said. The Velthari Dominion had given them 72 hours to surrender. After that, they would begin orbital bombardment. The message was polite in the way that powerful beings were polite to insects. It thanked them for their cooperation in advance. Elena was 63 years old. She had gray hair that she kept short and practical. She had hands that knew hard work and eyes that had seen both joy and sorrow. She had been governor for 15 years, elected by people who trusted her to make difficult decisions. But she had never faced a decision like this one. The door opened behind her. Marcus Chen, her head of security, walked in with a tablet in his hands. He was a tall man in his 40s, with a military background from before he came to New Harvest. His face was grim. "I have finished counting our weapons," he said. "We have 47 hunting rifles, 12 old military pistols from the original colony ship, and whatever farming tools we can sharpen into something dangerous." Elena almost laughed. Almost. "Against 15 warships in orbit." "Against 15 warships," Marcus agreed. "Governor, I need to ask you something directly. Are we going to fight?" Elena turned from the window. Outside, she could see families walking home from the fields. Children were playing in the streets. An old man was sitting on his porch, watching the sky with worried eyes. These were her people. She was responsible for every single one of them. "What do you think we should do?" she asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I think we should fight. Not because we can win. We cannot win. But because surrendering to the Velthari means slavery. They will take our young people for labor camps on their mining worlds. They will take our children to be raised as servants. They will work us until we die, and then they will forget we ever existed. So we die fighting instead of dying slowly. At least it is our choice." Elena nodded. She had already made the same calculation in her mind. Death in battle was terrible, but it was quick. The Velthari way was much worse. "There is one more thing," she said. She walked to a cabinet in the corner of her office and opened it. Inside was a device covered in dust. It was the size of a small refrigerator, with old wiring and a screen that flickered when she turned it on. The emergency beacon. Marcus stared at it. "That thing still works?" "It should. It was installed when the colony was founded. It can send a message directly to Earth." "Earth is 3 weeks away by signal," Marcus said. "Even if they send help immediately, which they will not, it would take months for any ship to reach us." "I know. The military protection grid does not cover us. We are listed as an unaffiliated colony. Earth has no legal obligation to help us." "I know that too." Marcus looked at the old machine and then looked at his governor. "Then why would we use it?" Elena began typing on the ancient keyboard. The screen showed a simple message form. "Distress call, priority 1. Because they should know. Someone should know what happened here. Even if they cannot save us, they should know that we existed. That we fought. That we did not just disappear quietly into the dark." She typed the message slowly and carefully. She described the Velthari fleet. She described the ultimatum. She described her people and their courage. She described the coordinates of New Harvest and the estimated time until the deadline. At the end, she added 3 simple words. "Please send help." She knew it was foolish. She knew no help would come. Earth was too far away, and their little colony was too unimportant. The great powers of the galaxy had made their positions clear long ago. Humanity was a young species. They had a small fleet that protected only their core worlds. They did not fight wars over distant farming colonies. But she pressed the send button anyway. The machine hummed and clicked. A light turned green. Message transmitted. The screen said, estimated arrival time, 18 days, 7 hours. 18 days. They had 72 hours. It is done, Elena said. Now let us prepare our people. The next morning, Elena called a meeting in the central square. All 12,000 colonists gathered under the open sky. Mothers held their children. Farmers stood next to teachers. The young and the old crowded together, waiting to hear what their governor would say. Elena climbed onto a wooden platform so everyone could see her. She looked out at the faces she knew so well. She had attended their weddings. She had celebrated the births of their children. She had buried their dead. These were not just citizens to her. They were family. You all know why we are here, she began. Her voice was strong and clear. The Velthari Dominion has demanded our surrender. They have given us 72 hours. After that, they say they will destroy us from orbit. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Fear, anger, despair. Elena let them talk for a moment before raising her hand. I will not lie to you. We cannot defeat 15 warships with hunting rifles and farming tools. We cannot escape. There is nowhere to run. And help is not coming. I sent a distress call to Earth, but even if they wanted to help us, they are too far away. A woman in the crowd called out, her voice breaking. So we just die? We just let them take everything we built. Elena shook her head. No, we do not just die. We choose how we face what is coming. The Velthari want slaves. They want broken people who will work in their minds until their bodies give out. They want our children to grow up as servants who do not remember what freedom feels like. She paused and looked across the crowd. I say no. I say we fight. Not because we can win, but because we are human beings. We have the right to choose our own fate. And I choose to die on my feet rather than live on my knees. The silence that followed was heavy. Then, slowly, an old farmer named Thomas raised his hand. He was 70 years old with a weathered face and strong arms. I helped build the first house on this colony, he said. My wife is buried in the cemetery on the hill. My children and grandchildren stand here with me today. I am not leaving, and I am not surrendering. Governor Vasquez is right. We fight. Another voice joined his. Then another. Then dozens. The fear was still there, but something else was growing now. Pride, defiance, the simple human refusal to accept defeat. Marcus Chun organized the fighters. They were not soldiers. They were farmers and teachers and shopkeepers. But they learned quickly how to use their weapons, how to set traps, how to move through the buildings and fields without being seen. The children and elderly were moved to underground shelters that had been built for storms. The shelters would not survive orbital bombardment, but they might protect against ground forces. It was better than nothing. Elena worked without rest. She visited every family. She answered every question. She held the hands of frightened mothers and looked into the eyes of young men who knew they might die in the coming days. She did not make false promises. She only told them the truth. They were not alone. They had each other. And whatever happened, they would face it together. On the second night, she stood alone on the roof of the government building. The stars were beautiful here, far from any city lights. She could see the faint lights of the Velthari ships in orbit, circling like predators waiting for the right moment to strike. She thought about Earth. She had never been there. She was born on a transport ship and had spent her whole life on the frontier. But she had seen pictures: blue oceans, green forests, cities that stretched to the horizon. 20 billion humans living on the world where their species began. Did they know about New Harvest? Did they care? Or was this little colony just a footnote in some database, too small and too far away to matter? She stared at the silent sky and whispered to no one. We sent the message. That is all we could do. Far away, impossibly far, in a classified facility orbiting Earth, an automated system processed the distress call. It flagged the message with a priority code that had not been used in 3 years. It routed the data to a department that did not appear in any official government directory. In a dark room filled with screens, a young officer read the message and felt his heart begin to race. He picked up a secure phone and dialed a number that very few people knew existed. Sir, he said when the line connected, we have a priority 1 distress call from the Outer Rim. Colony designation New Harvest. Belthry Dominion Forces. 72-hour deadline. There was silence on the other end. Then a calm voice spoke. Wake the Admiral. Activate the Black Fleet. The officer swallowed. Yes, sir. Should I notify the standard military command? No. This stays in the contingency. Those are our people out there. And we do not leave our people behind. The line went dead. Deep in the secret places between stars, something ancient and powerful began to wake. On New Harvest, Governor Elena Vasquez watched the sky and waited for an end that seemed certain. She did not know that her message had been heard. She did not know that far across the galaxy, 17 massive shadows were beginning to move. She only K. Archon Seveth stood on the command deck of his flagship and watched the small planet rotate slowly below. Kepler 442b. The humans called it New Harvest. He called it his newest conquest. Seveth was tall, even for a Velthary, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms that moved with practiced grace. His species had ruled 100 worlds for 10,000 years. They knew how to take what they wanted. And they wanted this planet. Begin the landing operation, he ordered. Standard suppression protocol. I want the population centers secured within 6 hours. His officers moved to obey. Transport ships detached from the fleet and began their descent through the atmosphere. Each ship carried 200 Velthary soldiers armed with the best weapons in the Dominion. Against a colony of farmers with no real weapons, it would be no contest. Seveth allowed himself a small smile. This was almost too easy. The humans had not even tried to negotiate. They had simply sent a pathetic distress call to their homeworld, as if Earth could do anything to help. His intelligence reports were clear. Humanity's military fleet was small and defensive. They protected only their core worlds. A distant colony like this was completely outside their sphere of influence. The galaxy knew how humans operated. They were a young species, barely 3 centuries into their spacefaring age. They spread too fast and too thin, planting colonies everywhere without the military power to protect them. It was foolish, but it made them easy targets for older, wiser civilizations. On the surface of New Harvest, the Velthary troops landed in perfect formation. They expected frightened civilians ready to surrender. What they found was different. Marcus Chen had positioned his fighters throughout the colony. They used the buildings for cover. They used the irrigation tunnels to move unseen. They set traps using farming equipment and chemicals from the agricultural storage facilities. The first Velthary squad that entered the main town walked straight into an ambush. Explosive charges buried in the road detonated under their transport. Hunters with rifles fired from the rooftops. Before the soldiers could organize a response, the human fighters had disappeared into the maze of streets and alleys. Lieutenant Krath led the squad. He was a veteran of 30 campaigns and he had never seen anything like this. These were not soldiers. They were farmers with old weapons and homemade explosives. But they fought like cornered animals, and cornered animals were dangerous. They knew we were coming, he reported to the flagship. They have prepared defensive positions throughout the settlement. Archon Seveth frowned at the report. How many fighters? Unknown. Perhaps 200 or 300. They are using guerrilla tactics. Hit and run attacks. Then stop running after them. Secure the perimeter and push inward. They cannot hide forever. Krath obeyed, but the fighting was slower than expected. Every building could hold an ambush. Every street could hide a trap. The humans did not fight fair. They fought to survive. By the end of the first day, the Velthari had taken control of the outer districts. But they had lost 40 soldiers doing it. 40 soldiers against farmers with hunting rifles. It was embarrassing. Far across the galaxy, the news networks picked up the story. A minor item in the endless stream of galactic events. The Velthari Dominion was absorbing another unprotected colony. This time, it was a human settlement on the Outer Rim. On the Rithani homeworld, a diplomat named Sira watched the report with something like pity. The Rithani were an old and peaceful species. They did not approve of conquest, but they did not interfere in the affairs of others. They had learned long ago that interference only led to more conflict. Poor humans, she said to her colleague. They never learn. They plant colonies everywhere without thinking about protection. And then they are surprised when predators come. Her colleague nodded. It is the nature of young species. They are optimistic. They believe the universe is kind. Eventually, they learn the truth. Or they die before they can learn. On the Corvith border station, Admiral Thrak reviewed the same news with different thoughts. The Corvith were warriors. They respected strength and despised weakness. To them, humanity was a species that had potential but lacked the will to use it. Humans are strange, he said to his aide. They have resources. They have population. They could build a fleet to rival any power in the quadrant. Instead, they spread themselves thin and hope that no one notices them. Perhaps that is their strategy, his aide suggested. Stay small. Stay quiet. Avoid conflict. Thrak laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping on metal. That is not a strategy. That is cowardice. And cowardice always ends the same way. Sooner or later, someone takes what you have. He turned off the newsfeed. The Velthari are welcome to their farming colony. When humanity has been properly humbled, perhaps they will finally understand how the galaxy works. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Voth reviewed the situation with bureaucratic detachment. The council existed to maintain order and prevent major conflicts between the great powers. They did not concern themselves with small matters like the fate of a single human colony. Should we issue a statement? His assistant asked. Voth considered the question. What would we say? The Velthari are acting within their rights. The colony is outside any protected zone. There is no treaty violation. It seems harsh. The galaxy is harsh. The humans know this. If they wanted protection, they should have stayed closer to their homeworld. He filed the report under routine monitoring and moved on to more important matters. Back on New Harvest, the fighting continued into the second day. The colonists had retreated to the central districts, but they had made the Velthari pay for every meter of ground. Governor Elena Vasquez coordinated the defense from an underground command center, tracking the movements of both forces on a map that Marcus updated constantly. We have lost 23 people, Marcus reported. His voice was tired but steady. The Velthari have lost almost 100, but they have more to lose. Elena nodded. She knew the mathematics of their situation. Even if they killed 10 Velthari for every colonist who fell, they would eventually run out of fighters. The Dominion could simply keep sending more troops. "How long can we hold?" she asked. "Another day. Maybe 2. After that, we will be pushed back to the shelters. And then?" Marcus did not answer. They both knew what would happen then. The Velthari would offer one final chance to surrender. When it was refused, they would seal the shelters and wait for the people inside to starve. Or they would simply gas them. The Dominion had done it before. Elena looked at the countdown clock on the wall. 40 hours remained until the original deadline. But the ground invasion had already begun. The Velthari were not waiting. "Tell our people to hold as long as they can," she said. "Every hour matters." "Why?" Marcus asked. "What are we waiting for?" Elena did not have an answer. She had sent the distress call, knowing that no one would come. Earth was too far away. The galaxy did not care about them. They were fighting alone, and they would die alone. But still she hoped. It was foolish and irrational, but she could not stop hoping. Somewhere in the universe, someone must care. Someone must be listening. Someone must be coming. In his command ship, Archon 7th received an updated casualty report. 112 soldiers dead. Nearly twice that number wounded. Against farmers. "This is taking too long," he said. "Order the ground forces to accelerate their advance. Use heavy weapons. I do not care about property damage anymore." "Archon," his tactical officer said carefully, "if we use heavy weapons in the residential areas, civilian casualties will be significant. I am aware of that. The civilians can surrender at any time. If they choose to hide with the fighters, they accept the consequences." The order was transmitted. On the surface, Velthari artillery began firing into the central districts. Buildings collapsed. Fire spread. The screams of the wounded filled the air. Marcus felt the explosions shaking the underground command center. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered. "They have changed tactics," he said. "They are not trying to take the colony intact anymore. They are trying to destroy it." Elena closed her eyes. This was it. The end was coming faster than she had expected. Her people had fought bravely, but bravery was not enough. It was never enough. She thought about the distress call she had sent. It was traveling through space right now, a tiny signal carrying the hopes of 12,000 people. In 16 more days, it would reach Earth. Bureaucrats would read it. They would file a report. They might even express sympathy. And then nothing would happen. That was how the galaxy worked. The strong took what they wanted. The weak suffered what they must. Humanity had learned this lesson on 100 worlds, and they would learn it again here. Or so Elena believed. She did not know that her distress call had been received 17 days ago. She did not know that it had triggered protocols that no galactic intelligence agency had ever detected. She did not know that deep in the void between stars, in a place that appeared on no map, 17 warships were already moving. She did not know that the assumptions the galaxy made about humanity were about to be shattered forever. Archon 7th looked at the burning colony and felt satisfied. The resistance was collapsing. Another few hours and it would be over. He had already begun composing his victory report in his mind. He had no idea that he had just made the worst mistake of High Terran contingency fleet, moved through fold space like a pack of wolves hunting in the night. 17 dreadnoughts, each one 5 kilometers long, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. They were the most powerful warships ever built by human hands. And the galaxy did not know they existed. Admiral James Okonkwo stood at the center of the command bridge aboard the Prometheus Unbound. He was 61 years old, with dark skin that showed the lines of a life spent in military service, and eyes that had seen more battles than he cared to remember. He had commanded the Black Fleet for 15 years. In that time, he had answered 37 distress calls from colonies, just like New Harvest. Every call was answered. Every colony was protected. And every time, the attackers were given the same choice: leave peacefully and never speak of what you saw, or be destroyed completely. Most chose to leave. The few who did not were no longer a problem for anyone. Admiral, Commander Walsh reported from her station. We are 4 hours from exit point. All systems are operating normally. Okonkwo nodded. Status of the fleet? All 17 ships report combat ready. Weapons are charged. Shields are at full capacity. Full drives are stable. And the enemy? Walsh pulled up the tactical display. It showed the Kepler 442 system in detail, including the positions of the Veltri fleet in orbit around the colony world. 15 warships, Admiral. Standard Dominion battle configuration. Their flagship appears to be a Ravager-class cruiser. The rest are a mix of destroyers and support vessels. Okonkwo studied the display with the calm focus of a man who had done this many times before. 15 ships against 17. In terms of numbers, it was almost fair. But the Veltri had no idea what was coming. Their ships were advanced by galactic standards. They were not advanced by human standards. What is the situation on the surface? He asked. Walsh's expression darkened. Artillery bombardment of civilian areas. Significant casualties. Our sensors indicate that the Colonial Defense Force is still fighting, but they are being pushed back. Current estimates suggest they can hold for another 6 to 8 hours. We arrive in 4 hours. Yes, Admiral. Okonkwo allowed himself a small moment of relief. They would make it in time. Not all the colonists would survive, but enough of them would. And that was what mattered. He turned to address the bridge crew. Listen carefully. In 4 hours, we are going to reveal ourselves to the Veltri Dominion. They do not know we exist. They believe humanity is a weak, young species with a small defensive fleet. We are about to prove them wrong. He paused, looking at each officer in turn. But remember our mission. We are not here to conquer. We are not here for revenge. We are here to protect our people and to send a message. The Veltri will be given a chance to withdraw. If they take that chance, we let them go. If they do not, we disable their fleet without destroying it. We do not kill unless we must. Lieutenant Commander Eric Johansson, the weapons officer, spoke up. Admiral, the Veltri have been bombarding civilians. They have killed innocent people. Why do we show them mercy? It was a fair question. Okonkwo had asked himself the same thing many times over the years. Because mercy is not weakness, he said. It is strength. Anyone can destroy their enemies. It takes real power to defeat someone and then choose to let them live. We show mercy because we can afford to. Because we are so powerful that we do not need to prove anything by causing unnecessary death. He looked back at the tactical display. And because we want the Veltri to go home and think about what happened here. We want them to wonder what else we are hiding. We want them to ask themselves if their next target might also have a black fleet waiting in the darkness. Fear is a better defense than any weapon. The officers understood. This was not just about saving one colony. This was about protecting all human colonies forever. Every time the Black Fleet appeared and then vanished, leaving behind only confused survivors and unanswered questions, the legend grew. How many worlds had decided not to attack human settlements because of rumors they had heard? How many wars had been prevented by fear of the unknown? No one knew the exact number, but it was large. Okonkwo walked to the observation window at the front of the bridge. Stars streaked past in the strange light of fold space, reality itself bending around the ship as it traveled faster than should be possible. This technology was humanity's greatest secret. No other species in the galaxy could travel like this. No one even knew it was possible. He thought about the history that had led to this moment. 230 years ago, when humanity first made contact with galactic civilization, they had been young and naive. They had expected to find allies, friends, a community of intelligent species working together for the common good. Instead, they had found exactly what every species eventually finds: a galaxy ruled by power. The strong took what they wanted. The weak were absorbed, enslaved, or destroyed. Treaties existed, but they were written by the powerful to benefit the powerful. Justice was a luxury that only the strongest could afford. Earth's leaders had faced a choice. They could try to build a fleet large enough to defend against the major powers, but that would take centuries and would make humanity a target. They could try to form alliances, but every ally demanded concessions, and every alliance had a cost. Or they could do something else entirely. They chose to hide. On the surface, humanity appeared weak. They built small defensive fleets that protected only their core worlds. They planted colonies everywhere without visible protection. They spoke softly and avoided conflict. The galaxy looked at them and saw a young, foolish species that would eventually be conquered by someone. That was exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Because in secret, in shipyards hidden in the darkness beyond the Ur cloud, humanity built the Black Fleet. They developed fold space technology that let them cross the galaxy in hours instead of months. They created weapons that were generations ahead of anything the major powers possessed. They trained soldiers and officers to be the best in the galaxy. And they waited. Every distress call from every colony was monitored. Every attack was answered. The Black Fleet appeared, solved the problem, and vanished before anyone could understand what they had witnessed. For 2 centuries, this strategy had worked perfectly. Humanity grew and prospered. Their colonies spread across the galaxy. And no one ever realized that the weak, naive species they looked down on was secretly one of the most powerful civilizations in existence. "Admiral," Walsh said, interrupting his thoughts, "we have a message from New Harvest. It appears to be a colonial broadcast on an open frequency. Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled, and then a woman's voice filled the room. It was tired and strained, but it was not broken. "This is Governor Elena Vasquez of New Harvest. To anyone who can hear this message, we are under attack by the Velthari Dominion. We have been fighting for 2 days. We have lost many people, but we are still standing. We will not surrender. We will not give up. If this is the last message anyone hears from us, please know that we faced our end with courage. We are humans. We do not kneel." The message ended. Silence fell over the bridge. Okonkwo felt something tighten in his chest. Pride, sorrow, determination. These people had fought alone for 2 days, believing that no one was coming, expecting to die. And still they had not given up. "That message was broadcast 6 hours ago," Walsh said quietly. "She did not know we were coming." "She knows now," Okonkwo said. He turned to the communications officer. "Open a secure channel to New Harvest. Maximum encryption. I want Governor Vasquez to know that help has arrived." "Yes, Admiral." The next few minutes were tense. The communications officer worked to establish a link through the colony's damaged systems. Finally, the connection was made. "Governor Vasquez," Okonkwo said. "This is Admiral James Okonkwo of the Terran Contingency Fleet. Apologies for the delay. Please inform your people that Earth has arrived." There was a long pause. When Elena's voice came back, it was shaking. "Admiral, I thought no one was coming. I thought we were alone." "You were never alone, Governor. Every human colony is protected. Every distress call is answered. We are 4 hours from your position. Hold on a little longer. 4 hours. Elena's voice broke on the words. We can do 4 hours. We can do anything for 4 hours. I know you can. Okonkwo out. He ended the transmission and turned to his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. 4 hours, he said. Let us use that time well. Tactical review in 1 hour. I want every officer to know their role when we arrive. We are about to show the Velthari Dominion what humanity truly is. Walsh nodded. Yes, Admiral. And what exactly are we going to show them? Okonkwo smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had finally cornered his prey. We are going to show them that they made a terrible mistake. And we are going to give them a chance to learn from it. Deep in the Prometheus Unbound, the crew prepared for battle. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Shield generators hummed with power. Pilots ran simulations in their fighters, practicing maneuvers they had drilled 1,000 times. These men and women had volunteered for this duty. They lived in secret, served in secret, and if necessary, woe. The full space tunnel collapsed in a silent flash of light, and 17 dreadnoughts materialized at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. They emerged in perfect formation, moving as one, their massive hulls reflecting the distant sunlight like mountains of steel. Admiral Okonkwo watched the tactical display as his fleet oriented itself toward the colony world. The Velthari ships were visible now, small dots of light orbiting the planet. They had not noticed the new arrivals yet. Their sensors were not designed to detect ships emerging from fold space, because no species in the galaxy was supposed to have fold space technology. All ships report ready, Commander Walsh said. Weapons charged. Shields at full power. Time to engagement range? 12 minutes at current speed. Okonkwo nodded. Signal the fleet. Maintain formation. We approach openly. I want the Velthari to see us coming. The Black Fleet moved forward like a wall of darkness advancing across the stars. Each dreadnought was 5 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. Their hulls were covered in weapons batteries that could punch through the shields of any known warship. They moved in perfect synchronization, closing the distance to the colony world with unstoppable momentum. On the Velthari flagship, Archon 7th was reviewing the final assault plans when the alarms began to sound. What is happening? He demanded, rushing to the tactical station. His sensor officer stared at the display with wide eyes. His skin had gone pale, and his forehands were shaking. Archon, we have contacts. Multiple contacts. Large contacts. How many? What type? The officer's voice trembled as he answered. 17 warships, Archon. Each one is approximately 5 kilometers in length. They appeared at the edge of the system without any warning. Our sensors did not detect their approach. Seventh felt his stomach drop. That was impossible. No fleet that size could approach undetected. And no species in the quadrant had warships that large, except for the Galactic Council's ceremonial vessels. Identification? He asked. The officer worked his controls frantically. After a moment, he looked up with an expression of pure disbelief. Archon, they are broadcasting identification codes. They claim to be human ships. Human ships. Seventh almost laughed. That is absurd. The humans have nothing larger than frigates. Their entire military fleet could fit inside my flagship. I know, Archon, but the signatures match human energy patterns, and they are broadcasting on human frequencies. They call themselves the Terran Contingency Fleet. The tactical display updated, showing the approaching vessels. Seventh stared at them. Each ship was more than 10 times the size of his flagship. Their weapon signatures alone were stronger than his entire fleet combined. This is a trick, he said. It has to be a trick. Some kind of holographic projection or electronic warfare. Archon, our sensors confirm physical mass. These are real ships. The communication officer interrupted. Archon, we are receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. They are requesting to speak with you directly. Seveth's mind was racing. This could not be real. Humanity was weak. Everyone knew humanity was weak. Their colonies were scattered and unprotected. Their fleet was small and defensive. They did not have ships like this. They could not have ships like this. But the tactical display did not lie. Put them through, he ordered. The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared. Dark skin, gray hair, calm eyes that held no fear and no anger. He wore a military uniform that Seveth did not recognize, with insignia that had never appeared in any galactic database. Archon Seveth, the human said. His voice was calm and almost friendly. I am Admiral James Okonkwo of the Terran Contingency Fleet. I believe we need to have a conversation. Seveth straightened his posture, trying to project confidence he did not feel. I do not know what kind of deception this is, Admiral, but the Velthari Dominion does not respond to threats. These colonial farmers are under our protection now. Your interference will be reported to the Galactic Council. Okonkwo's expression did not change. I am not threatening you, Archon. I am informing you of the situation. You have attacked a human colony. You have bombarded civilian areas. You have killed innocent people. This is unacceptable. These colonists are outside your protected zone. They are in unclaimed space. We have every right to... No. Okonkwo's voice cut through Seveth's argument like a blade. You do not. Every human colony, no matter where it is located, is under the protection of Earth. This has always been true. You simply did not know it. Seveth felt a cold wave of fear wash over him. The human's calm certainty was more terrifying than any threat could have been. What do you want? He asked. I want you to withdraw. Order your ground forces to cease fire and return to their transports. Take your fleet and leave this system. Never return. And if I refuse? Okonkwo's smile was thin and cold. Then I will disable your fleet, rescue my people, and leave you drifting in space to be recovered by whoever finds you first. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your engines will be destroyed. Your communications will be destroyed. You will be helpless, but you will be alive. I do not kill unless I must. Seveth looked at the tactical display again. His 15 ships against 17 human dreadnoughts. Even if the size difference was somehow fake, the energy readings were real. These ships had power that his fleet could not match. I need time to consider, he said. You have 5 minutes. The transmission ended. Seveth stood in silence for a long moment, feeling the eyes of his crew on him. They were waiting for orders. They were waiting for him to tell them what to do. He had commanded the Velthari military for 30 years. He had conquered dozens of worlds. He had never lost a battle. His entire career, his entire identity, was built on victory. But he was not a fool. He knew when he was outmatched. Prepare to withdraw, he ordered. His tactical officer stared at him. Archon? You heard me. Signal the ground forces. Pull back to the transports. We are leaving. But Archon, the Dominion High Command, will be told that this colony was not worth the resources. Seveth's voice was hard. That is the official report. The colony was too well defended. The cost was too high. We withdrew to preserve our forces for more important targets. The officers exchanged glances but moved to obey. Within minutes, the Velthari ground forces were receiving orders to cease fire. The artillery went silent. The soldiers began retreating to their landing zones. On the surface of New Harvest, the colonists watched in disbelief as the bombardment stopped. Elena Vasquez climbed out of the shelter where she had been hiding with the survivors and looked up at the sky. And she saw them. Massive shadows were passing overhead, blocking out the stars. Ships so large they seemed impossible, moving in perfect formation across the sky. She had never seen anything like them. No one on New Harvest had ever seen anything like them. What? What are those? Marcus Chen asked, standing beside her. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Those are ours. Those are human ships. The shadows continued to pass. One after another, dreadnoughts the size of cities moved into position above the colony. Their presence was overwhelming, absolute, undeniable. The message was clear. Humanity was here, and humanity was not to be challenged. Seveth watched his ground forces retreat. He watched his fleet prepare for departure. And he watched the human dreadnoughts take up position between his ships and the colony, blocking any possibility of attack. He had been completely outmaneuvered. He had walked into a trap without even knowing it existed. Archon, the communication officer said, "The human admiral is requesting another transmission. Put him through." Okonkwo's face appeared again. This time, there was something like respect in his eyes. Archon Seveth, I want to thank you for making the wise choice. Your forces will be allowed to withdraw without interference. But before you go, I would like to invite you aboard my flagship. There is something I think you should see. Seveth hesitated. Is that an order? It is an invitation. You may refuse if you wish, but I think you will want to understand what happened here today. And I think you will want to know why. Seveth looked at the massive dreadnought that filled his view screen. Every instinct told him to refuse, to retreat, to pretend this had never happened. But curiosity was stronger than fear. I will accept your invitation, Admiral. An hour later, Archon Seveth stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Unbound and looked around with wonder. Everything he saw was beyond anything the Vulturi possessed. The technology was at least 3 centuries more advanced than what the major powers of the galaxy could build. How is this possible? He asked. Humanity has only been spacefaring for 300 years. You should not have technology like this for another 1,000 years. Admiral Okonkwo stood beside him, hands clasped behind his back. That is what everyone assumes. That is what we want everyone to assume. You have been hiding this. For how long? 2 centuries. Perhaps longer. Seveth felt the foundations of his understanding crumble. But why? With power like this, you could dominate the quadrant. You could challenge the Galactic Council itself. Why pretend to be weak? Okonkwo walked to the observation window. Outside, the blue-green world of New Harvest rotated slowly below them. The fires were still burning in some areas, scars from the Vulturi bombardment. But the people were safe now. Arkham, what do you think happens when a species reveals its true power to the galaxy? Sevetarchan Seveth sat across from Admiral Okonkwo in the officers' quarters of the Prometheus Unbound. Between them was a simple table with 2 cups of tea. It was a strangely civilized scene, given that one man had just defeated the other in what should have been an impossible battle. Tea, Okonkwo offered. Seveth took the cup and held it without drinking. His forehands were still trembling slightly, though he tried to hide it. I have questions. I expected you would. How long has this been going on? How many times has your Black Fleet appeared to save a colony? Okonkwo leaned back in his chair. 47 times in the past 60 years. Different species. Different situations. Always the same result. 47 times. Seveth's voice was hollow. And no one reported it? Some tried. They were not believed. Others chose to stay silent, as you likely will. The story is too impossible. 17 dreadnoughts appearing from nowhere. Technology that should not exist. A species that everyone underestimates suddenly revealing overwhelming power. It sounds like a fever dream. Seveth thought about his own superiors in the Dominion High Command. He imagined standing before them and describing what he had witnessed. They would remove him from command. They would send him for psychological evaluation. They would bury the report and pretend it never happened. "You designed it this way," he said. "We did. The best defense is one that never has to be used. If the galaxy fears what it does not understand, if every potential attacker wonders whether their next target might have a black fleet waiting in the darkness, then most attacks never happen at all. How many colonies have you saved by not appearing at all? By simply existing as a rumor?" Okonkwo smiled. "That is a number we will never know, but I suspect it is large." Seveth set down his tea and studied the human admiral. This man had spent his career operating in complete secrecy, protecting people who would never know his name, fighting battles that would never be recorded. It was a strange kind of service. "Why do you do it?" he asked. "You could conquer half the galaxy with what you have. You could make humanity the dominant power in this quadrant. Instead, you hide. You pretend to be weak. You let species like mine look down on you. Why?" It was a question Okonkwo had heard before. He had asked it himself in the early days of his career. The answer had taken him years to understand. "Do you know what happens to dominant powers, Archon? They attract challengers. They spend all their energy defending what they have instead of building what they want. They become prisoners of their own strength, constantly watching for the next threat, never able to rest." He gestured at the stars visible through the window. "Humanity has been in space for 3 centuries. In that time, we have spread to more than 400 worlds. We have 20 billion people on Earth alone, and billions more scattered across the colonies. We are growing, thriving, building something that will last for millennia, and no one sees you as a threat." "Exactly. The galaxy ignores us. They underestimate us. They think we are naive children who will eventually learn the harsh realities of existence. And while they watch each other, competing for power and territory, we quietly grow stronger." Seveth nodded slowly. It was a strategy that required extraordinary patience and discipline. Most species would have been tempted to reveal their power, to demand respect, to take what they wanted by force. Humanity had resisted that temptation for 200 years. "There is something else you need to understand," Okonkwo said. "We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to conquer other species. We just want to be left alone to live our lives in peace. Then why build the fleet at all? Because the galaxy is not peaceful. Because there will always be predators who see weakness and want to exploit it. The Black Fleet exists because it must exist. It is a shield, not a sword." Seveth thought about his own civilization. The Velthari had spent 10,000 years conquering and absorbing other species. It was simply how they operated. They saw a weak target and they took it. It was natural. It was expected. But what if the target was not actually weak? What if every species they had conquered had been hiding power like this? The thought was disturbing. "What happens now?" he asked. "What happens when I leave here? You return to your fleet. You withdraw from this system. You report to your superiors that the colony was not worth the cost. You never speak of what you saw here. And if I speak of it anyway?" Okonkwo's expression did not change. "Then you speak of it. I told you before, I do not care whether you tell the truth or a comfortable lie. The result is the same. How can you be so confident? Because the truth is harder to believe than any lie. Because your superiors will not want to hear that humanity has been fooling the galaxy for 2 centuries. Because admitting what happened here means admitting that the Velthari could have been defeated at any time." It was true. The Dominion High Command would bury this story faster than Seveth could tell it. They would not want to believe that their intelligence had failed so completely. "There is one more thing," Okonkwo said. "I want you to deliver a message to your commanders. Not the official story. Not the comfortable lie. A private message from me to them." "What message?" Okonkwo leaned forward, and for the first time, there was steel in his voice. "Every human colony is protected. Everyone. It does not matter how far they are from Earth. It does not matter if they appear defenseless. If you attack them, we will come. Not because we want war, not because we seek revenge, but because they are ours, and we do not abandon our own." He paused to let the words sink in. "Tell your commanders that this is not a threat. It is a promise. We have kept it for 200 years. We will keep it for 200 more." Seveth looked into the human's eyes and saw absolute certainty. This man believed every word he was saying. The entire civilization behind him believed it too. "I will deliver your message," he said. 2 hours later, the Valkyrie fleet departed from the Kepler 442 system. Their ground forces had been recovered. Their dead had been collected. They left behind a colony that had been battered but not broken. Governor Alan Vasquez stood in the central square as the last Valkyrie transport lifted into the sky. Around her, the survivors of New Harvest were emerging from their shelters, blinking in the sunlight, staring at the massive dreadnoughts that still filled the sky. Marcus Chun appeared at her side. He had a bandage on his head, and his arm was in a sling, but he was smiling. "We made it," he said. "I cannot believe we made it." Elena looked up at the shadows of the human warships and felt tears running down her cheeks. "I thought no one was coming. I sent that message knowing it was hopeless. I told our people to fight, even though we could not win. But they came. They came." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "All these years, we thought we were alone out here. We thought Earth had forgotten about us. But they were watching. They were waiting. They came." A shuttle was descending from one of the dreadnoughts, landing in the square. The colonists gathered around it, watching in amazement as the hatch opened and Admiral Okonkwo stepped out. He walked to Elena and extended his hand. "Governor Vasquez, it is an honor to meet you." Elena shook his hand, still struggling to process what was happening. "Admiral, I do not know how to thank you. I do not even know how to begin. No thanks are necessary. You are human. Of course we came." He looked around at the damaged buildings, the exhausted survivors, the scars of battle that covered the colony. "We will leave a medical team and repair crews. Your colony will be rebuilt. And I will make sure that Earth knows what happened here. Your people fought with courage and honor. That will not be forgotten. Will you stay?" Elena asked. Okonkwo shook his head. "We cannot. The Black Fleet must remain secret. We will repair what we can in the next few days, and then we will leave. As far as the galaxy knows, the Valkyrie simply decided that this colony was not worth the trouble. But we will know the truth. Yes, you will know. And perhaps that is enough." 1 week later, the Terran contingency fleet departed. They slipped back into fold space and vanished as mysteriously as they had arrived. Within hours, there was no evidence that they had ever existed. On New Harvest, life slowly returned to normal. The buildings were repaired. The fields were replanted. The dead were buried with honor. Governor Elena Vasquez resumed her duties, leading her people through the long process of recovery. But something had changed. Something fundamental. The colonists of New Harvest no longer felt forgotten. They no longer felt alone. When they looked up at the stars at night, they saw them differently. The darkness was not empty anymore. Somewhere out there, invisible and patient, was a fleet that would come when called. A fleet that had always been there. In the months that followed, stories began to spread. whispered rumors in trading posts on the frontier. Strange tales told by Velthari veterans who had survived something they could not explain. Legends of impossible ships appearing from nowhere to defend human colonies that everyone had written off as lost. No one believed the stories. They were too fantastic, too convenient, too much like fairy tales told to comfort frightened children. Humanity was weak. Everyone knew humanity was weak. But some species began to think twice before attacking human.